a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with my 2019 alfresco debut. The crow just landed on the tree over there, but decided to give me a little bit of respect for the opening. Well, there we go. And there is a cherry tree right above my head. You can't see much of it, but it's gorgeous. So I'll add some footage of it in all its fully bloomed glory at the end of the video. So hello. Yes, this is sakura or cherry blossom time, hanami time, where I was led to believe, but it was false advertising, that when the cherry blossom trees are in bloom, the Japanese go crazy and have picnics in the park and drink a lot of alcohol and have wild, crazy sex. And unfortunately, that latter thing, I haven't found much evidence of that, but it is a nice time. So, I've had a really great reading week. I've only finished one book, but it was a doozy, and that was Pearl S. Buck's The Good Earth. And this was for British Nobel Women Reading Club, and it was the previous months. We're now April. I think it might have been the February selection for that reading club, and I just couldn't get around to finishing it until now, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. 5-star read. Loved it. It's my first by Pearl Buck. I kind of poo-pooed her for no good reason that I can think of or articulate now. I guess I just thought she was kind of trashy or too commercial. On the basis of this book, which I think is her best, perhaps, or most well-received, she's an excellent storyteller, and I loved the novel with all my heart. So I think everyone knows it's about a poor Chinese farmer who buys a slave for his wife, and then it's the life and family that they make, and it's kind of a rags to riches story, and just beautifully told. Lots of unlikable and likable characters that not only leapt off the page, but just danced around and will be continuing to dance around in my tired old brain for a long time to come. So loved it. And I've got my hot coffee in a can, which I just bought for $1, and the vending machine. It'll probably only be a few more weeks before all of the vending machines stop selling hot coffee in favor of cold coffee, which I'm not as big of a fan of, although on a hot summer day I do drink them. It's not extremely warm. It might be about 9 degrees right now, and the temperature's supposed to go up to 17 or 18, but by that time it'll be too late for me and apparently quite windy, so I decided to come out now. I have bailed on 2 books this week. The first one, I was pretty sad about it, and I talked about it in the terrible book tag I posted last night, so you can skip ahead because I don't have much else to say, so I'll probably regurgitate whatever it was I said there. The Holden Legend by Nadim Aslam. I was doing it on audio, and the audio narration was really good, and the writing was really good. The story was really good, so why did I bail? The characters just didn't come to life for me at all. So while I cared about what was happening, and I was, for almost all of it, deeply engaged in the unfolding story, I didn't care about the characters any more than I would have had I been reading a newspaper article about the same events. Like, I just didn't feel any connection to them. Their backstories were narrated, and most of them had pretty terrible experiences, and I was shocked, and I was interested, but they weren't alive for me at all. So there was something just kind of cold about the characterization, and I just got to another big tragedy in the story, and was thinking about, I'm not feeling, other than that it's terrible, and these things happen in true life in this part of the world, Pakistan, but the characters aren't real for me. They're not throbbingly alive at all. And there was something that, I think his name is Jason, Old Blues Chapter and Verse, I'm pretty sure his name is Jason, and his review of Bolano's 2666, which was a novel that I hated, but he liked it, and the way he talked about it really, he made a comment that I told him I would be plagiarizing with attribution, so it's not plagiarism. He said, I'm not finding myself merely appalled, I'm finding myself moved. And that's what was not happening for me. I was appalled by all the terrible terrorist and misogynistic tragedies that were befalling these people, but I was not moved because the characters just didn't seem real to me. So I was sad because I'm still thinking about the story, but I just didn't care enough about the people to continue. So that was a bail. I also bailed on the Somerville and Ross collection of short stories from Ireland, 1899, Some Experiences of an Irish RM. I read about half, didn't I? Just over half, 55% of it. And I loved the writing, and I really enjoyed the humor, but the stories were so fixated on horse racing, horse trading, literally looking gift horses in the mouth, and hunting. And every story was so fixated on that, and those are really just the most boring topics in the world for me. I don't want to read about animals in fiction. I mean, animals are great, perhaps. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on animals. But animal-fixated fiction, I've just seemed to be encountering a lot of it recently. Ugh. So I'm really glad I read what I did, and that was enough. That was enough. The writing was great. If I ever find that they wrote fiction with people in them, be sure to try it. So that's what I bailed on. But the most exciting news is about all the books that I've started. So here we go. After I bailed on the audiobook, I picked up another one, and this was a book that, or an author that I've been hearing about, and I've been hearing very mixed reactions to ever since I got my reading mojo back. About 3 years ago, I started reading in just a ridiculously intense way, and have been ever since. And I've been hearing about Amor Towles, and some people find his books really boring, and other people just love them. Well, I think I'm going to be in the latter category, because I started, I believe it's his debut, but I'm not entirely sure, Rules of Civility, and I don't know how much to credit the audio narrator, because she's wonderful. But I have fallen so deeply into this book, I'm a third of the way through it, and I love the writing, the characters, everything that wasn't happening in the last book. The characters are really well drawn, and I'm really finding it fascinating. I love the way Towles inserts kind of social commentary or historical observations about period, because it starts out in about 1933, but it's jumping around in time. And that's one thing I really find challenging with an audiobook, is when there's a lot of jumping around in time. It's really hard to follow, but in this one it's not, so far. But the way that... sorry, I'm just distracted. There's a slide over there with yellow tape around it. Why can't they use the slide? It is pretty old looking. Maybe it's condemned. Anyway, I should show you a picture of that at the end too. It opens, and I believe this scene is in about the late 40s or maybe early 50s, when the protagonist and I think her boyfriend are at maybe the Met. It's some famous, it's some art gallery in New York, looking at Walker Percy's photographs. So immediately I went to Google and looked at them, and he, before his time, when it was really difficult, he concealed a camera and took pictures of people on the subway in the 1930s. Just the way Amor Towles captured that scene and introduced that theme of photography and documenting a period of history, and the protagonist recognizes a man, and I won't say too much about it, because even though it's in the first chapter, you just need to read it, because there's a bit of a surprise within the first chapter that's just wonderful to read. But she recognizes a man that she knew, and he ends up becoming another main character, so then we go back in history and find out about their relationship and all that. And it's just really well done, and there's a whole bunch of stuff about America in the world, and just really pithy observations that are inserted in a way that it's... How did he do that without it doesn't pull you out of the story? It's just an important part of the story. Wow. On the basis of the third that I've read, I am in the Amor Tolls camp for sure, so that's going very well. And I had one of those serendipitous Twitter experiences on the last day of the month, like the 31st of March, Sunday I believe it was, and I had bailed on the Somerville and Ross, so that was my last thing for the Irish Readathon, and I stumbled upon a tweet about an Irish debut novel, and I Kindle previewed it and loved what I read, and it was so cheap, it was like $5 on Kindle to buy it, and I am now a third of the way into that, and I have a lot to say. It's called Leonard and Hungry Paul by Ronan Hessian. It's really hard to describe. It's quirky, it's not dark, it's light in the sense that it's about basically happy people that are kind of weird. And it's funny. I have to read you the opening. I put it on Instagram and whatnot, but listen to this opening paragraph. This is what hooked me, and it's had many such moments since. Leonard was raised by his mother alone, with cheerfully concealed difficulty, his father having died tragically during childbirth. Though she was not by nature the soldiering type, she taught him to look at life as a daisy chain of small events, each of which could be made manageable in its own way. She was a person for whom kindness was a very ordinary thing, who believed that the only acceptable excuse for not having a bird feeder in the back garden was that you had one in the front garden. Well, that just... it's all there, what I've been experiencing reading it. It's delightful, just quirky enough that you just kind of start, but it's basically benign goodness and kindness, and it sounds like it shouldn't work, and I bet you it wouldn't work for every reader. It might not even end up working for me, of course, but it just is hitting me right, and so I'm really enjoying it. I'll have much more to say later. That's enough for now, but that was a lovely unexpected find. So my Irish Readathon continues. Apparently this guy, Ronan Hessian, he was a musician. I couldn't find anything. I don't think he was very successful because YouTube doesn't have any of his music, and this is his debut novel, but really enjoying it so far. And for Aussie April, I'm now a third of the way into this debut novel, Hang Him When He's Not There by Nicholas John Turner. I can't remember where I found out about this. I thought it was from Eric's book haul, but when I search for this novel or this writer on YouTube, the only thing that comes up is a review of it by Mark Nash, which I haven't watched yet, Mark, because I want to read the book myself and probably even make my own review before I watch yours, but I'm looking forward to that. But there's nothing else, so I don't know how I found out about this book. This one is also knocking my socks off. And I should say about the last one, the Irish one, and this one, they're both not perfect. There are first novel flaws. Of course, it's to be expected, but there's so much energy in both of them. This one is intellectually stimulating with a whole bunch of emotional compulsion. That's not the right form of compellingness to it. It's intricately structured, and I don't really know what's going on yet, but it's revolving around the accidental death of an old man in a nursing home. Well, they'd taken all the people from the home out to watch the New Year's Eve fireworks, but he was too disabled to get out of the van. And anyway, it's a long story, but he died accidentally, and then the ramifications of that are spinning around. And the different voices in here, I'm not sure how it'll all link up, but in many, many places the writing is just stupendously good. And one of my favorite voices, and it is the one that I read from the opening chapter, so I'll put a link to the book haul video where I read page 1 of this book. But that first person voice is so immediate and vibrant, and you can just see this man. He seems like a young man sitting across from you saying these things to you. It's just the best first-person narration I've read in eons, and that is threaded throughout the novel, along with a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not sure how it's all going to link up, but it is fascinating. Yeah, I've been having kind of a good week, hey? I have also started this gay novel, WAPA, by Salim Haddad. This is a buddy read with Ollie Bliss. We haven't checked in with each other. We're going to do that this weekend. We're going to read it over the month. And I'm not loving it so far. I will not be surprised if I bail. I sent Ollie a heads up Voxer message the other day saying, this first 20 pages aren't grabbing me at all, so I might bail. Please don't be angry. Then I read 10 more pages and they were a little better, so I'm not going to give up so soon, but I also don't believe in investing a lot of time in a book that doesn't seem like it's going to be very good. It's very earnest. Of course, this topic is very serious. It's about a gay relationship in a war-torn. Seems like it's maybe a civil war going on in an Arabic country that's not identified, and so that's very serious. The protagonist lives with his grandmother, and she catches him and his boyfriend in bed, and all hell breaks loose. But there's an over-earnestness to the narration, even at the prose sentence-by-sentence level, and the descriptions where I just feel like it's a little heavy-handed in the didactic department, and that's not something that works for me. But I'm going to give it a little bit more. Ollie and I are checking in this weekend on the first 75 pages. I'll probably read that much and maybe decide then. But the ideal criteria for me is, if I don't think a book is going to be at least a 4-star read, at the moment where I realize it's going to be something less than 4 stars, I should just bail, because life's too short, and this is not shaping up to be that so far. But like I say, the last 10 pages were a little more encouraging, so fingers crossed. I've also started this Singaporean novel, State of Emergency by Jeremy Tiang. Not very far into it, quite impressed with what I've read so far. The protagonist's sister is killed in a terrorist bombing back in the mid-60s, and then it's carrying up to his life up to the present day, and maybe going to be doing a lot of jumping around, but I'm finding the writing really crisp so far. I mean, good Lord, I've only read 20 pages, so it's too early to tell, but whereas the first 20 pages of WAPA, I was not feeling impressed, I do feel impressed by this, so I'll certainly be continuing and hope that impressiveness continues. And I am about halfway through this Sylvia Plath short story, Mary Ventura and the Ninth Kingdom, part of the Faber Stories series. Doris has already finished it, sent the video, which I haven't watched her take on the end of the story because I haven't finished it. I should finish it today, hopefully, and our video should be up in the coming days, but based on the first half or something like that, it's good. Kind of sinister, foreboding without being sure. There's all kinds of things that could go wrong in the second half, I suppose, but the first half, I was hooked. And last but certainly not least is this Vita Sackville West novel, All Passion Spent. I started it this morning with my first cup of coffee. I've only read 10 pages, and I really enjoyed those 10 pages a lot, so that bodes well. This is a buddy read with Leah from Calgary, and we're going to read it over the next 4 days. So I will tell you next week how it went. A 94-year-old famous earl dies in the opening chapter, and then his family congregate at his house. And the way that family dynamic is sketched with humor and precision, in a way that I'm just curious about all of the people in his family, so immediately, especially his unmarried, or at least single, maybe she's a widow, I don't know yet, but daughter Edith, she's 60, and she's keeps putting her foot in her mouth and saying inappropriate things, and I like those kind of people. I am those kind of people, so yeah, I think it's going to be good. Cousin loved it. It's the only 5-star book I could find on Cousin's Goodread page. I think Cousin and I are meeting very soon, so stay tuned. Cousin of always doings. I'm so excited. There should be video evidence of our auspicious meeting coming to a YouTube channel near you. But this is starting out really good. I haven't read anything by Vita Sackville West. The prose is very kind of old-fashioned, much more than Virginia Woolf's, in a sense. But that is fine. When was it published? 1931 originally. Hogarth Press, of course. It's starting out really, really good. Whew, so that's what's going on reading-wise. Lugging my tripod, my microphone, and all those books. I didn't even prepare or think about trying to bring other books that I might be starting in the coming week, so I haven't even addressed my mind to it. Let me see. There was one I mentioned that I was going to start this week that I didn't get to. Bottled Goods by Sophie Van Leeuwen. I didn't get started on that because I spontaneously added the Irish novel, and I just love having some room in my reading life to spontaneously add books. So I'll get to Bottled Goods probably this week. And then beyond that, I'm not sure. Let me see my Buddy Reads calendar. What's coming up? I will probably start from my Aussie, April. The short stories, Florence by Maxine Benham Clark. I'm probably going to start that this week to get going with that. Oh, the other one is for British Nobel Women Reading Club this month. It's the Toni Morrison novel, Song of Solomon. My paper copy is coming in the mail today, and I have also the audiobook on script, so I'm going to do them as a combo. I think my audiobook is narrated by Toni Morrison. She narrates all of her books, and her voice is kind of going, so the last one I listened to, it was pretty awful by the end. Her voice was so hoarse, but I'll test it out to see whether I do that combo. But I'm looking forward to finally reading Song of Solomon. I think that's enough, don't you think? All right, so yes, it's all in all, I couldn't be more delighted about how my reading week has gone. How has yours been? Thanks for watching. Oh, and stay tuned for the the yellow taped, the emergency taped slide, and the cherry tree. So that's my little stool I was sitting on. There's some of my paraphernalia. Sandbox, playground, and what's up with this, hey? Huh. And there is the cherry tree, Sakura. Probably in the next 4 or 5 days, all the blossoms will have fallen. There you go.